So in this video, we're going to be discussing microservices architecture. Now, what is a microservices architecture and why is it so popular? The truth is, microservices architecture simply are used for decoupling, right, for scale and agility. And what do you mean by scale and agility? For large organizations, they want to be able to scale up and scale out their system, and they want to be very agile. And so they deploy most of their services independently. And so, how does that come about? Microservices simply decompose an application that is an application like your Amazon or your Netflix, for example. Most of those services are decomposed into numerous small independent services, right? They are Each of those services focus on a specific business capability. Now, the reality is, like I said, it's being used by most of these large organizations because they want to be able to build and deploy each of their software features independently. And that's how they are able to scale, right? And they're able to be agile. That is, they want to deploy things independently. Now, there are three things that are important to note here. One, decoupled services. Now, decoupled services means that each service handles at least one business logic or one business capability. It typically has its own database, right? Now, services communicate through well-defined APIs with no shared memory or tight coupling between them. The second point I want to make about microservices here is they have independent deployment. Now, independent deployment means that teams can develop, they can test, they can deploy each microservice independently on its own schedule, right? Without coordinating one massive release, right? And this enables continuous deployment and faster feature velocity. That is, you can go far, you can basically build and deploy a new service independently without having to deploy the entire service, which is very different from what we spoke about when we discussed monoliths, right? Which is why larger organizations go towards microservices and event driven, right? At certain points. But then it's very important to remember that we're just talking about microservices here. And so we're talking about their advantages here. Number one, decoupled services. Number two, independent deployment. And finally, technology flexibility. Now, one of the most beautiful things about microservices is the fact that each of these services that I have just introduced that you can deploy and you can develop and deploy independently, they do not have to have the same code stack or code written in the same coding language, essentially, right? So one of each of these could be written in different technology stacks or programming languages if it's appropriate. So I give you an example. If you have an authentication service, it can be written in Java. You can have your payment service written in C sharp. Your front end could be written with JavaScript, Angular, React, whatever. That is the beauty about all of this. So basically, you choose the best tool for each service specific to that service rather than the needs, right? That can maybe be constrained by the organization standards. But here's a reality check, right? I like to always put this here because it's really important. When I explained the context behind system design, architectural patterns, I did say it's all context driven, right? There is no one size fits all. So there's always a reality check with all of this beauty that I've sort of explained. Microservices enable hyperscale. Hyperscale, Amazon, Netflix, Microsoft, right? For example, Netflix. It's famous for running thousands of microservices to deploy continuously at a massive scale. However, this power comes with significant complexity, right? Um, like I did explain earlier on, you need robust DevOps practices, comprehensive monitoring and observability. You need sophisticated networking. You need a mature engineering process, right? Because debugging across dozens of services is fundamentally harder than debugging a monolith, right? And so start with microservices only when you have a clear evidence you need their benefits, because it can be a very tedious task managing it without all of these components that I've listed out. And so this is the beauty, but then there is also the reality check of microservices. Now, I hope that as we go on this journey, you can see why, how, and why certain teams are choosing the different patterns that they are using, because it is really important that you are able to choose based off of your context and your reality, your team, the skills, the fit for your team, and the journey that is the business requirements in terms of where you want to go as a business.